Here's another way to think about how to do close reading. If you're still struggling to take your essay writing to the level of close reading, and I am still telling you in your comments that you aren't doing it yet, this is hopefully going to help you. So what I'm discussing here is called the surface depth distinction. And if you think about a text as having the surface level, which is its outermost obvious level of meaning, versus having implicit or deeper meaning, then a close reading ideally gets us through the surface down to the depth layers of a text. So if I say in my comments that you are just summarizing or restating the text and not close reading it, is because you're staying at the surface level, and you need to think about it differently so that you can get into a more of an interpretive mode. Here's the difference. If you're analyzing the surface, you're probably doing this. You're quoting something, and then you are connecting that quote to different themes and character development. You go right from the quote to the connections you make. But in a depth analysis, you probably are going to quote and then point to some features in the quote. And if you remember, I gave an update video a couple weeks ago about pointing directly to things in the text. You might want to go back and watch that. And then you give your reasons for why those specific features you pointed to lead us to a certain interpretation of the quote, or to discuss or see the author's purpose in writing the quote in that specific way. So if you aren't pointing, or if you aren't discussing literary features, then you probably are still at the surface level, and that's what you really need to do to turn the corner and get to another level of analysis. The most important thing I can recommend for this is to definitely do the two-step process. This is the steps I demonstrated in the early lessons, and it's laid out in the assignments for these essays. Step 1, annotate the thing you want to close read, and then step 2, do the interpretation and the writing. If you annotate well, if you spend a lot of time on it, you'll get a really firm grasp of the surface level details, and you'll be able to point to things, and it'll take you to the depth level. Another really high recommendation for me is to use the writing guide, particularly section 4 on figures of speech. So if you remember, I have linked to the writing guide in each of the essay assignments, and this gives you all those questions you can use to close read. But scrolling down, you'll find the last section is some figures of speech. And I've given you here particular figures of speech, types of different literary features, rhetorical features, and these can really help supercharge your analysis. So for example, parallelism, it's a very simple idea that there are things in the sentence that are parallel to each other. They repeat the same structure. Whenever this happens, the writer is typically emphasizing or foregrounding something. And so if you see parallelism and you spot it, you can say, well, why is the author foregrounding or emphasizing that? What are they trying to say? Why is the character emphasizing this? So using these features, these are the things you can point to in that middle step. Other document here. In this middle step where you're pointing to literary features, these are exactly the kinds of things you can point to. Well, there's parallelism here, or there's antithesis here, and why would the author choose to put it that way, or to use that tool to create an effect? So I really recommend that you kind of look these over, maybe take a special pass on your passage when you're annotating to look for these things, and then you will have some real ammunition for doing your close reading. Last but not least, here is a book that I like called Digging into Literature. It gives a explanation of surface depth and how you can start getting to the depth level by linking surface and depth in your sentences. So you can pause the screen here and kind of see what the examples are doing. I like this third example in particular. In Morning Song, which is a Sylvia Plath poem, mother is represented through images of emptiness that indicate a loss of the mother's self. And so you can see here that a specific literary feature has been identified, images of emptiness. And so the surface and the depth are connected here in these sentences. So think about it that way. You're identifying something on the surface, you're linking it to something at the depth level, and that's how you make the surface depth concept work for you in your close reading. Okay, good luck.